Dylan Walker, welcome to the Run Long podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Second time because first time didn't work, so now I probably started the recording. It happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get back straight into the conversation. I was just chatting with you. You've been a vert athlete for 5 years, so it's quite a long time. And
Yes.
you were just telling the story about your own experience with running and with vert. So let's get back
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah. And so I've been with Vert for 5 years, but I was running before that. I started running in 2013 when my first son was born. And he was my motivation to just do some activity to get uh, in shape. At the time, I was 28 years old. I weighed about 240 pounds. So technically, I think medically obese. I was definitely way out of shape, very weak. Got out of breath quickly. High resting heart rate. All the things that come with just inactivity for many years. And so I thought, okay, how do I get in shape? What do I want to do? And at the time, I wasn't making a lot of money, and so I needed something that would be inexpensive. And so running, at least initially, can be very inexpensive. Just need cheap pair of shoes that are good enough at the time. Used shoes work well. A lot of people get rid of them after just a couple hundred miles, and they've still got a couple hundred miles in them. And so, just put on a cheap pair of Adidas shoes or something that I had laying around. I don't even know if they were for running, and went out and I ran. And I didn't have any training, no idea what I was doing, didn't do any research, didn't do any reading, had no structure. And so I ran as hard as I could for as far as I could every single run. And that led to ultimately me getting injured, as you might suspect. And so I did end up getting a minor strain on my hamstring and piriformis. And the doctors told me to take about 3 months off from running. Just no running, let it rest, let it heal. So I did that. And so while I was sitting around for 3 months, I'm going, I don't want to go back to my old ways. I still really want to get in shape. I was seeing some progress with the running. I had built up to about a 10K, so it wasn't, all for nothing or like discouraging. But it took a long time to get there. It took me about a year to get to a 10K, whereas now I know with a structured training program, you might be able to get there in 3 or 4 months, even if you haven't run before. And so I started researching, and I was looking for something that could give me a structured training. Vert didn't exist yet at that time, but I was fortunate to live in an area that has a local running group called the Striders, and they have a program that they run throughout the year called Next Step, which will build you from running a 5K in the early winter to a marathon in the fall, if you want to, right? It's broken up into like 2 to 3 month programs, so you can chain them together or just do a specific one to target a 10K or whatever you want to target. And that worked really well for me. I built up. I did finish the 5K in the early winter, and I don't know, something just said we can do more. We can keep going. Let's run further. Let's push harder. And so I built up to doing some marathons. I did several marathons here in the U.S. On the East Coast. And I don't know, something about marathons just didn't really sit with me. I was hitting my times. I was doing well. And I think it was just the crowds and things. I'm not very much into large crowds and
Okay.
fighting for like Gatorade cups at aid stations and stuff. That just didn't excite me or interest me.
Which
And I think
marathons did you run?
yeah, so I ran,
Like big marathons?
no, so I didn't do any of like the world major ones like New York or anything. So like this should put your to put a little bit of perspective on how much I really don't like crowds. I think probably the biggest one I did was maybe the Baltimore Marathon.
Okay.
And that's only, I think that's fewer than 10,000 people or something. But I think it was at Wineglass in Corning, New York. And this is also kind of a small one, but it's a Boston qualifier. So a lot of people run it to try to qualify for Boston because it's a net downhill marathon as well. And I don't know, I was running with my pace group to try to hit my time. And it was everybody's bunched up and, trying to break the wind and draft off everybody. I don't know. And, we're not pros. We're nowhere near pros. This is like the 340 pace group or something. And everybody was so hyper competitive and bunched together and everything. And actually, unfortunately, a man did hit me and trip and fall down. And I stopped and I helped him up, but I felt so bad for this person. They just had a skin knee. They were able to keep going, but I don't know. The enjoyment of doing a road marathon just wasn't there for me anymore. And so I come back from that race and I'm running with one of my friends that I've made here while we're out on just like a normal easy training run. And I mentioned, I don't think I want to do marathons anymore. I think I want to try something different, whether that's shorter distances or just really small marathons or just running for fun, like no races. And he said, well, there's a 50K coming up on trail. Why don't you come out with me? It's really cheap. It's like $50 or something. And I said, all right, whatever. It's 5 more miles. I can do 5 more miles. No big deal. Little did I know that trails are not roads. And I'd never run on a trail before, a dirt trail. And this, so I went from doing about a 340 marathon to doing a 7.5 hour 50K, right? Like it just doubled my time for extra 5 miles because the trails were so different and I wasn't used to climbing and I wasn't used to, putting my feet at different spots and everything. My ankles were so sore by the end. But I finished and that feeling of doing something, like it felt really challenging in all the right ways, but the aid stations were amazing. Like you had an aid station every 5 miles and they had peanut butter and jelly and all the, water, and there was some beer and like, all these things that you just don't have on road marathons. Like it was almost like a little miniature party every 5 miles. It was so great. And I just fell in love with the trail running at that point. I was like, this is great. I'm running in the trees. There's no crowds. I'm actually alone some of the time. And everybody was super supportive. The runners, the support crews, everybody. It was a blast. And I really liked that. That was the Rosaryville 50K here in Maryland. And I actually have done that race many times since then because it was just so much fun. So that's
you
how I got
mentioned you had
into
some
it.
brutal conditions, right? During
Yeah. So one year, the Rosaryville. So it happens twice a year. It's the same race. There's one in July and there's one in November. And this was a July race. And so part of the reason I think my time was so terrible is that the race director sent out an email after the race was over and said it was the hottest day of the year at that point at a heat index of 111 Fahrenheit. So it was brutal conditions for sure. Thankfully it's in the forest, so it is shaded. But if you haven't been to the East Coast of the US and experienced the humidity and the heat here, even people from like Colorado and California describe it as oppressive. Like they're like, how do you run? This is like swimming. So yeah, it was pretty brutal, but I just enjoyed it so much, even though it was extremely hot. And so that's how I started my ultra running adventures. That was in 2018. And I just kept going. And then I signed up for vert because I had done, the 50K distance, and I wanted to go to 50 mile. And that's a big jump. You're talking 31 miles to 50 miles, almost, you're almost double
20
the
more
distance,
miles.
really,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And there's this really interesting race in this area called the OSS CIA 50 mile race. And it's not technical, it's not extremely difficult. It's 2 25-mile loops on a relatively tame trail. But what's interesting about it is that it's a nighttime race. And I had not run at night to that point. Most 50Ks you can complete within a day, and they start in the morning. And so I was looking for somebody who could train me, with a structured program to go that full distance. And online, I could find some books, and I got a couple of books. But, for a real interactive training session like I had with the Striders, but for a longer distance, vert seemed to fit the bill. I really enjoyed working at that time with Max, because it was early vert days. I don't think you guys had very many coaches at the time. And,
Right.
It worked out really, really well. I was able to complete the full 50 miles. I think it took me about 12 and a half hours or something. But yeah, that was in 2020. And I've just kept seeking new adventures since then.
That's cool. What are some of the best that you've done so far?
The best. So I'll start at a shorter distance and kind of work up. So the Virgil Crest 50K in New York is a strong memory for me because that was the first race that I sought out that had real vertical climbs to it. As you can imagine, the east coast of the U.S. is not especially known for its mountains. And so finding something that had a lot of climb and vertical ascent to it has been challenging. And so I found this one. It was a 50K that they run at a ski resort. And so it has about 8,000 feet of vertical over 50K. And so that was a really, really challenging race for me to train for. Here in Maryland, I basically live at sea level. I'm at like 100 feet elevation, and most of my local hills are about 200 feet of climb, if that. So, how do I train for this? And so, Max helped me out a lot, and I ended up traveling to the Appalachian Trail, which is about an hour or so west of me, where there's at least some climbing there. You can do about 1,000 feet in a single climb on parts of the Appalachian Trail. And so I would go out there each weekend and just run up and down these same hills kind of over and over again. And that really helped. It did extremely well at that race. It's very challenging, but I ended up placing 7th, thanks to Max's training and vert training. So then later that year, this was 2021, I went ahead and signed up for the Cloud Splitter 100K, which is in Norton, Virginia. This is it was officially listed, on the documentation as being a 69.5-mile race. So they didn't try to hide the fact that this is not a 100K. It's quite a bit further than 100K. Which I've learned a lot of trail races, it's ish. It's a 50K-ish, 100K-ish. Yeah. And that was also really fun because it centers around one of the highest peaks in Virginia down there. And you run essentially the 4 sides of the same mountain. So you come up one side, you go down another side, come back up it, go down another side, and so it's really interesting because you get to see the summit and the surrounding area multiple times throughout the race. And from that point, if I remember correctly, on a clear day, you can actually see, you're standing in Virginia and you can actually see to West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and North Carolina, the surrounding states down there. So that's pretty interesting, I think. And it was just really fun. I actually made a trail buddy there. She and I were kind of running together for multiple miles. And finally she spoke up. She's like, hey, you want to just run together for the rest of this race? Let's see if we can do it together. And so from about a marathon distance all the way to the end, we were just side by side, motivating each other, chatting, and it made all the difference.
Right.
When it got really tough at about 60 miles and you still have almost 10 to go, and my feet are hurting, legs are hurting, her knees were starting to go out. Like I was starting to crack mentally, she's starting to crack physically, and we just motivated each other and pushed each other to get to the end. And that was a really, I think, enlightening experience, that when you get to these really far distances, even though it's a solo sport, having somebody to help you and support you can make all the difference in how that race goes.
Right. And it's probably not something you find as much in road running. I think the camaraderie and bonds that you can create on the trails are very unique and long lasting. What is your relationship with pain during a long race? Because this is a question that I get asked a lot. Like, how do you stay in the moment? How do you stay focused? How do you not give up? What is your take on that? What is your way to cope with the pain?
Is there a way to cope with it? I don't know if there's a way to cope with it. I think it's like a bad roommate. You kind of just learn to work with it. It's going to be there. It's not going to go away. There's not a lot you can do about it when you're at the ultra distance, because taking things like ibuprofen or other pain relievers can be dangerous.
Right.
And so I think you work really hard to prevent it to begin with. So for example, one thing ultra running has taught me is that little niggle in your shoe or your pack that's just kind of rubbing, just not quite right. As soon as you start to feel that even a little bit, you really need to address it if you can. Like if you're not near the end of your race, if you're only 10 or 15 miles in and your pack is rubbing on your shoulder in kind of a weird way, after another 20 miles, that's going to be a really painful sore spot, right?
For sure, it's going to become something bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think ultra running has taught me that those little niggles, those little rubs, address them early. It's okay to stop, untie your shoe, readjust the laces. Okay, you lost a minute of time. You're going to be out here for hours. It's okay to lose a minute of time, especially for someone like me that's really doing these for fun and a personal challenge. I'm not a Jim Walmsley. I'm not, elite, where a minute might actually matter. That's one less minute at an aid station eating food, or one less minute that I'm ahead of a person or catching a person or whatever. But for me, just trying to complete these challenges that, is well above whatever, an average person is doing is still incredible to me. Anyone who finishes an ultra marathon is incredible to me, whether you're the last person or the first person, because I think it's equally, it's an equal challenge for both the person who's trying to win and the person who's just trying to finish.
For sure.
So, yeah. And so for pain,
totally agree.
I think that, as I said, I think it's just something that's there. It's going to be there. There's not much you can do about it. And so learning to accept it to a certain level, and then, it's there, it's going to be there, but you can keep going. You know, it unless it's a broken bone pain or, you know, something extreme like that, you can always keep going. Even if it's slow. I walk a lot. It's okay. Yeah. You know, you get there. And sometimes, what you thought was bad isn't that bad. You get to the next aid station. Maybe you have a crew, or maybe there's some aid station crew or something, and you talk to them for a couple of minutes. You get a little bit of food, get some hydration, and suddenly you're like a brand new person. Or, you know, you run through the night and the dawn comes, and that sun rising over the trail when you're out there and everything is miserable, and you take 5 minutes, you take a deep breath, and you enjoy that sunrise. And again, I become a brand new person when that happens. I love it so much.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. I also love the simplicity of, and like the universal experience of dealing with pain, because like, I don't know, we, like in our everyday life, we tend to avoid pain and working hard and fatigue in every possible way. And an ultra race, a trail race, or whatever distance, just running in general, forces you to confront with a very human and universal sensation that is pain. And it makes us all equal, because it doesn't matter where you come from, if you're, you know, a rich person or a poor person, or it doesn't matter your education, anything.
Yeah,
you're gonna feel some level of pain.
yeah.
So like, no matter if you're at the front of the race or in the back of the pack, of course the pain is different, but everyone is experiencing it. So it's, to me, that is very cool. It's something that makes us all equal. And yeah, a really cool thing that I like about trail running is that, you know, I'm a pro runner, but I get to stand on the start line with amateur runners, everyday runners, beginners, just anyone. And being there all together and trying something really hard together is beautiful. And it doesn't happen in many other circumstances in life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For sure. And you talk about, you know, your pro running, your experience running with the elite group, and then your everyday training with just your local trail running group. And I will say, yeah, it's something special to run with people who have dedicated themselves to the sport of ultra running to get to the professional level. I think, and I think, like you said, that it's very universal, very baseline. You know, I can't speak for all elite runners or all amateur runners or across sports, but it's been my experience in ultra running that no matter what level someone is at, I feel like they've always been very friendly and very accommodating.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've never run into like someone who is rude because they think that they're better at the sport, right? Mm-hmm. They're, you know.
Yeah, let's say usually. And oftentimes when I talk to people from other sports, they are surprised by how close and friendly the trail community is, which, I don't know, to me is something normal, because I've been part of this community for a really long time, and everyone is friendly. And, you know, I have a lot of respect for my competitors. And of course I'm very competitive, and I will do everything to beat my my teammates, but also other athletes. But outside of the race, we're good friends, and I have a lot of respect for everyone. And I think the greatest sign of sportsmanship and respect is to be able to offer your very best to another athlete, to your competitor. So that's why I don't really like when, you know, two elite runners are crossing the finish line holding hands, because like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're there for racing, for competing, and that's the whole point of competing. And I think you're just missing out on an opportunity that is unique and important. But that's just my take.
Yeah. I can't say I've ever been in that position to, like, you know. So, yeah, but
yeah, the trail community
I think,
is great, and is friendly, and is diverse, and
yeah, and I think
it's not perfect, and it's a mirror of our society. But thinking about other sports and other environments, I think it's pretty healthy and friendly and fun in general.
Yeah, I will say, I think the distance is definitely part of it. It's really hard for me to be upset or angry or anything after I have run, 40 plus miles. It's just like there's not the energy in me to get upset about something. It's just like, oh, this aid station, I was really looking forward to salted pretzels, and this aid station doesn't have salted pretzels. Oh, well, like, I guess.
Don't waste energy getting angry.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it is what it is. So.
And also, like, I think when you're out there with other people, with other athletes, it feels like shared experience, like you're in it together, like you're working together to finish the race, helping each other, and that is very cool, because like sometimes you meet some complete strangers and you become almost good friends during a race that only lasts a few hours. Right. And that is also very, very unique.
Yeah. It is. And, I mean, just recently, just to shift gears a little bit here, I did one of my bucket list races. And on this race, I made some friends. So I just completed the 2025 Transalpine Run. Oh. Yeah. Awesome. And so, this was a bucket list race for me. I heard about this race in 2021 while I was training for Cloud Splitter. We had a pretty bad weather week here in Maryland. And so I was running on the treadmill, and I have an iFit treadmill. So it has, like workouts you can do with other athletes or whatever. And Lucy Bartholomew had run the Transalpine Run at some point and recorded it for this iFit program. And the scenery was so beautiful, just every time. It didn't matter if it was the beginning of the race, the middle of the race, when she's at a summit, every time it was just so beautiful. The people who live in that part of the world of, the Swiss Alps, the Italian Alps, it's just, they're so lucky. Oh my gosh. And I was like, I have to do that race at some point. And so, I was fortunate to look almost a year ago, actually, and I looked online and I saw, okay, Transalpine is coming up, and at first I didn't think I could do it. I was like, I don't know, it's a lot. For people who haven't heard of this race, it runs generally from southern Germany or Austria through Switzerland to Italy. It is a staged race. It's 7 stages, and the total distance is usually about 250 kilometers, which is actually the least of your concerns, because it's over 15,000 meters of ascent and descent. So that vert really kills you, because these are steep alpine trails.
Alps are steep and rugged.
Yeah. Yes. And so I was not even sure I could do it at first. So initially I was going to sign up for Trans Rockies, which is about half of Transalpine. But then I saw that this might have been the last year for Transalpine Run. They didn't have a sponsor going forward, and they weren't sure. So I just said, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. I have no idea how I'm going to train for this. I have no idea what this is going to be like. I have never run a trail in Europe before in my life, but what the heck? Reached out to Steve Kren, who's my current vert run coach, and I said, hey, I want to do this. You know, I have about a year to train. Can you get me there? And we talked about it. We looked it over. We said, okay, well, how am I going to do the ascent? How am I going to get altitude training? How am I going to do all this stuff that's just really challenging for someone who lives, like I might have said it earlier in the call, but I live at about 100 feet elevation. My local hills are about, 200 feet maybe, if I can get that. So how am I going to do this? And with Steve and Vert, I was able to get a good training plan. We spent all year working on strength training, on speed work, and doing lots and lots of hill repeats to get that efficiency. I found a hill called Bob's Hill that's about 45 minutes away. It's about 300 meters over about 2 kilometers, a little less than 2 kilometers. So it was good enough. And just did that over and over and over. We introduced sauna training, which I'd never done before. So I got a membership to a local club that has a sauna, and did the sauna, which helped with altitude. I actually was really concerned about the altitude. This is a race that starts at about 5,000 feet every day and goes to 8,000 or 9,000 feet every day on the climbs. And I had no altitude sickness, no issues because of that sauna training, which I didn't know about. I didn't hear about before. So I'm really glad that Steve knew about it. And I also, I mentioned at the beginning of the call when I first started running, I was about 240 pounds. I managed to lose about 30 pounds on my own over the years without any real targeted nutrition training or anything. But for Transalpine, I wanted to do well. I wanted to finish, not only finish strong every day, but finish feeling strong in the morning the next day with a staged race like this. And so I ended up hiring Vic Johnson of Mountain Sports Nutrition, who you had interviewed prior.
Yeah.
And
he's great.
Yeah, I learned about him from this podcast, and he was amazing. And he worked me through his program, and I lost another 20 pounds while training for Transalpine, which was challenging. Running on a calorie deficit is really hard. But he kept me strong, taught me the right amounts of nutrients to get. And yeah, I mean, I had an amazing time at Transalpine Run. I finished, well, and I felt good every day. And for someone coming from Maryland to go to the European Alps, I think just finishing was my goal.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. There were things on those trails. Thank you. There were things on those trails that they were new experiences for me across the board in terms of technicality, skill that I had not even imagined. And I just would watch the people in front of me who do it and see how they did it, and then feel the pressure of all the people behind me going, you need to go, go climb this wall, get over it. So yeah, and everyone was super awesome, super friendly. Like you said, the relationships, I met a couple from Australia. They traveled all the way from Australia to do this race, and they were super friendly and awesome. I met a couple from Switzerland who were used to running in these mountains and were actually trying to place, and they were leading after the first day. I think they ended up getting third overall in the team category. But I mean, they were super friendly and giving me all sorts of advice about how to run the screes and how to do the downhills without destroying your quads and your knees. And just super awesome. I really enjoyed that race. And like I said, I thought it was going to be the last year. They actually announced at the closing ceremony for the race that Dynafit had agreed to another 3-year sponsorship. And then it looks like, I think it was just announced this week or early last week, that the Ironman UTMB has purchased the rights to it. So now it's a UTMB race as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think it's going to get even more popular than it was. It already was very popular and sold out quite quickly. So if anyone out there is interested in running the Transalpine Run, I highly encourage it. I think if you really dedicate yourself and give yourself the time to train, anyone can do it. If I can do it coming from sea level and no hills, no mountains, I think anyone can do
example.
it. Yeah.
But you also worked really hard.
I did. And I don't want to say Bob's Hill, but
yeah. Give us a better idea of what your training looked like, especially in terms of volume and how many times per week you were training and just how the whole preparation was structured.
Sure. And so, so starting December 2024, so the race is in September 2025, I worked with Steve. It's winter in Maryland. We don't get a lot of ice and snow or anything, but it's still kind of cold, about 0 C or thereabouts. So we focused a lot on just speed and strength. I was doing, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, 15 to 30 minutes of strength training using the vert.run videos. So we're talking lots of planks, learning to hold a plank up to, 90 seconds, both, the normal plank and the lateral plank, and doing dynamic planks and squats and lunges, increasing the weight slowly over time, holding a dumbbell or a kettlebell, something like that. So it was a lot of strength early on for about 3 months of just let's really build these muscles before we focus on going distance. And so we did that through the winter. I did a 50K in May to just, where are we at for fitness? How are we feeling about mountains? Or like climbs in general? And so I went to West Virginia where they have some mountains, and I did a 50K there. That was a lot of fun. It was a 50K with I think about 8,000 feet of ascent and descent. So not super terrible, but it would represent approximately a stage at Transalpine Run. And so how did that feel? How is my training going? Could I do the distance well? Doing gear checks, that sort of thing. What does it feel like to carry this stuff? How's the nutrition working out? Because I had started with Vic in January, all that sort of stuff. And that went really well. So the strength block was kind of out of the way. And then we started to phase in more endurance work. So let's start running further. So now we're going from maybe 2-3 hour long runs on a weekend to like 4-5 hour long runs. Might be split up, might be 2 hours Saturday, 3 hours Sunday, or 4 hours Saturday, 2 hours Sunday, things like that. But building up, and I don't think I ever ran more than 60 miles in a week for training, but it was a lot of that. Just let's get that endurance. So then I did another 50K in July, the Catoctin 50K. It was 95 Fahrenheit that day, and it was brutal.
You like warm races?
I don't know if I like them, but it was brutal, and it was a challenge. It's always a challenge, right? Got to have something to make it interesting. So what does it feel like now? Like I'm doing this, and I haven't started sauna at this time. So what does the heat feel like? What does it feel like to do the hydration? Like really drink a lot of water all the time. And so we're just building. And so that was, finished that. And so that was kind of my endurance block. Like, let's get the distance so that you're able to run these 30 to 50K every day. And then finally, the last block was like, let's really, really hone these hills. Let's really focus on climbing efficiently and learning how to use the poles efficiently. And so my long runs went from doing maybe 15 or 20 miles with just whatever hills happened to be along the way. So maybe getting 4,000 feet of climb on a 20-mile long run. Okay, let's just do, we need to get you to doing 8 to 10,000 feet pretty regularly. And so now we start our Bob's Hill. And I joke, I was joking with people at the race, you know, and they're all like, how did you train? I'm like, well, I did the same 300-meter hill a lot. I said, I think I could run it with my eyes closed at this point. So Bob's Hill, 300 meters over about a little less than 2 kilometers. It's like 1.3 miles or something. And I would just go out there and, you know, I might have, like, Steve would be like, here's a 6-hour long run, but you're just going to be running up and down Bob's Hill for 6 hours. And so, you know, I started that. And what's nice about doing the same thing over and over is you can actually see your progress really, like, very clearly. Yeah. So the first time, you know, I go out there for 6 hours, I think I did 5 climbs because it was taking me, you know, 45 minutes or so to get up and then, you know, 25 minutes to run down. And so, you know, I maybe got 5 in 6 hours. But every weekend, just doing that once or twice a weekend, you know, Saturday and Sunday, I did end up building up. And I think I got to the point where I was doing Bob's Hill for 8 hours at one point. That was my maximum. And I think I got in 9 climbs or something like that in 8 hours. And I could easily, at one point, I think I did 7 in 6 hours because I knew it was a shorter time, so I could push a little harder. So that was really, really nice to see that progress. And I'm by no means running these. I didn't even think some of the hills were runnable. And then the Europeans proved me wrong at Transalpine. But learning how to use the poles, like I said, really helped. And just efficient, steady climbing. You know, where I'm not trying to set a record here. I'm not trying to run the whole thing and be gassed and not be able to do another one, because I need to be able to do, you know, when we're looking at Transalpine, one of the climbs was just 5,000, 6,000 feet just continuously. And so I need to be able to do 6 Bob's Hills in a row without stopping. And I got there, and I was really worried I wouldn't, even all the way up to the race. I got to Lisch, Austria, and I'm in that town, and it's surrounded by these beautiful mountains because it's this famous ski resort. I think one of the most popular ski resorts in Europe. And I'm looking up and I go, oh man, oh man, these are some scary mountains. I had never seen anything like it in my life. I mean, I've been to the Rockies in the US, and there's something about those European Alps and how sharp and steep and tall they are. It's just something else. Yeah. So even all the way to the start of the first day, I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. But like you said, that camaraderie, you know, there's 600 people starting on the start line. We're all here to do the same thing. We can do it, you know. And
that's so cool that you also, you know, spend time together at dinner, at night, and the next day you do it all over again. Yes. I think over a week you make friends, and it's a community experience that is very cool. Yeah. So I have documented Transalpine Run because, again, it was my bucket list. I really wanted to do this race. So if anybody's interested in learning a little bit more, please let me know, ask some questions. I do have kind of some quick summary videos on YouTube. If
If you want to go to Checkpoint Running on YouTube, I have a couple of videos about how I prepared, a little bit on the training.
That'll be interesting.
The highlight reel of the race itself. Again, very beautiful. If you live in Europe, I think you should absolutely do it. And if you live somewhere in the world, if you're able to go do it, give it a try. Martin, the race director, is amazing. Like, I can't get over that race and that beauty. If I could live in the Austrian Alps or the Swiss Alps and just run every day, I think I'd be in heaven.
Sounds like you found your perfect race. That's cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned to me before that now you're training for your first 100-mile race, right?
That's right. Yes. So Cloud Splitter was the furthest continuous race I've done at about 69 miles. So now I think doing something really, I really seek out adventure and challenge in my races. Something very different from the normal stuff I do here in the US. And so, I was looking online, I was on Ultra Sign Up, and I'm like, okay, what's an interesting 100-miler that I might be able to do in the next 6 months or so? And there's really not a lot on Ultra Sign Up because it's winter and people don't want to run 100 miles in the winter. Fortunately, there is one that I found that's in February of 2026. It's the Ocean to Ocean 100-mile race. And it's in Panama. You run from the Atlantic Ocean across Panama to the Pacific Ocean. And I just thought that was so cool.
Technically, you're crossing the continent.
You are crossing the continent, yes, and the continental divide. And so I don't know. Everybody I talked to was like, you're insane. You're going from February winter Maryland to Panama, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 80% humidity to run 100 miles. And I'm just like, I don't know. Something about like point to point, saying you crossed the continent, looking forward to that ocean, starting at an ocean, looking forward to the other ocean, I think is going to be such motivation for me that there's no way. Like, I'm sure I'll be miserable and, like you said, in pain and all these things. And I'll be looking forward to seeing that other ocean and finishing my first 100-mile race. I'm excited for it and really looking forward to it. Thank you. So I'm still working with Steve on Vert. Yep. Same thing, reached out to him, emailed him and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this kind of crazy race again. Can we get there? And we talked about it again. Same thing as Transalpine Run. He's like, yeah, we can get you there. What do you have a goal? What do you want to do? Do you just want to finish? Do you have a time goal? Steve is amazing because he studies these elevation profiles of these races and, comes up with some really fun training programs for me to do some interesting speed work and fartlek work and stuff so that I'm not getting bored with like, oh, we're going to go out and run 6 miles again today, easy run. Okay, well, that's going to get really boring really fast. So how do we mix it up and keep it interesting?
Keep it interesting and also improve your fitness, obviously.
Exactly. And so...
training, for a lot of people, it's boring, but it's actually very diverse. Like, if you really structure your preparation, it's not just running, it's so much more.
Yes.
Like running at different intensities and understanding different paces and grades and your body and strength work and easy runs and tempo runs workouts.
So, just to give you an example, this week already, so it's Thursday this week. And so Monday was a rest day for me. Tuesday was easy run with some strides. And so I had like 8 20-second strides with a minute recovery in there. Yesterday was my speed work day. And so I did 16 200-meter repeats with a 200-meter rest in between, which was
nice.
Intense, challenging, right?
That's a lot of repeats.
It's a lot of repeats, and it's a lot of, how do you, it's also teaches you how to hold back a little bit on the first two or three or four, and then, but push really hard on those last three or four. And that's important in any sport, is learning when to hold back and when to push. And so it teaches that. And then today I have a 45-minute easy run plus a 30-minute strength. And then this weekend I have a 2-hour uphill training to just keep that uphill strength that I gained from doing all the Transalpine runs. And also, if I'm going to cross the Continental Divide, I'm going to be running uphill for quite a while. So how do I keep that strength? So we're doing some hill repeats, nothing as intense as Bob's Hill, but I think he wants me to run like uphill strong for like 30 seconds with like a 2-minute recovery, and then 30 seconds strong. And then a 3-hour long run on Sunday, of just go out, RPE 4 or 5, something fun you like to run.
Endurance.
And just do the endurance run. And then we slowly pick it up. So each of the weeks is a little bit like that. The speed work will start to shift. I think, it goes, I think we alternate a little bit between like these lots of shorter repeats to fewer longer repeats. So I think this coming week I've got like maybe, I think 4 by like 5K or something like that. Again, I don't want the people out there to think this is like where you're going to start. I just said I did a Transalpine Run. I'm training for a 100 miler. If you are just getting into ultra running or running in general, you're not going to be doing 4 by 5Ks.
This is a pretty advanced workout for a pretty advanced training program.
Yes,
for sure. But what is also great about Bird is that we have training programs for different levels, and of course the coaches do a really good job at adapting those plans for the person you are, your lifestyle, your training opportunities, and the goals you may have. So training is and should look different for anybody.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks, Dylan. It was a fun conversation, and it was fun to get to know you. And I hope you inspired someone to try hard things like the Transalpine Run, or to come discover the Italian or Swiss Alps. And good luck with your preparation for your first 100 miler. And we'll be following your journey.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Francesco. Thank you for starting Vert. I think it's a great platform.
I'm just helping.
I really love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Bye.